Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Well, welcome back to the Bone. Today we have Chad Starkey. You know, he's a little famous in the athletic training world, but we are actually going to talk about some of the research that he's done with Cailee, Welch, Julie Cavallario, and of course, Chad Starkey. And their website where they're hosting this research is athletictrainingdata.com. So today we're going to talk about salary surveys and what are some of the trends that we're seeing throughout the athletic training profession. So not a long introduction, but Chad is at Ohio University. He's a professor and the chair of the Department of Athletic Training at Ohio University in Athens. Chad also serves as the director of Ohio's online Doctorate of Athletic Training program and the Masters of Athletic Training program. And in his free time, he wishes that he had more free time.
I don't think you were supposed to read that part.
Oh, well, you're the one that wrote the bio,
Yeah.
so it made sense because I think a lot of athletic trainers wish they had free time. But so with this salary research that you and your group are performing, what sparked the interest in gathering this data from the NATA job posting website?
Athletictrainingdata.com is, I view it kind of as the Mythbusters of athletic training. Our first real quick strike research that we did was that only Power 5 schools, or now Power 4 schools, get large student numbers. And that was kind of permeating the, not only the programs, but the students who are applying for it, for them. And our research showed that, no, that's not the case, that there are non-Power 4 schools, Division 2 and 3 schools that have significant athletic training enrollment. So, and then once that started, we started hearing about the so-called shortage of athletic trainers. And it's not really a shortage when you have more licensed athletic trainers now than in the whole history of our profession. It's just people are now following the money rather than the quote unquote prestige of a Division I position.
Okay. So where is the money at? Have we found that question yet? Or figured out that answer?
We do have that. The real money, and we'll exclude this from any further discussion because it's really not applicable to everyone, is in the academic setting, because that also includes postings for deans, provosts, who advertised on the NATA website, which I guess speaks highly of our profession or the people in our profession, but it does significantly skew the data. If we filter that out of the jobs posted in 2024, the industrial setting is the highest paying. Direct employment in a secondary school is up there. Rehab clinics. Down at the bottom, colleges and universities have an average salary difference of $12,000 per posting.
Mm.
And then these 1 year, athletic training fellows or residents that aren't really residencies or fellowships are like $32,000 a year for someone with a master's.
Okay.
You can make more at McDonald's, obviously.
So from the data that you guys are pulling, it's only clinical athletic trainers and not the academic positions. Is that correct?
No, anything that is posted on the Career Center, we enter into the database.
Okay.
There were 70 academic positions posted versus 835 for colleges and universities, which is by far the largest job seeker in 2024.
Gotcha. So with the NATA salary survey and what you guys are doing, what's the differentiation, or what are you guys finding between those two comparisons, I guess, if that makes sense?
The salary survey is self-reported data of people who want to share that information.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, not everybody chooses to participate in it. I think it's absolutely to the NATA's credit that they opened up that survey to non-members. I think it was the last time they did it. I can't remember when that was. We are reporting the advertised salary for these positions.
Okay.
And there is an understanding that if you say that the cap salary is $65,000, there's probably room for negotiation above that. But if they put 65 as the cap, that's what we put as the cap. We don't try to infer anything from it. And if they have the salary range $1 to $1, we don't include those salaries in our analysis.
It would be interesting to see on these job postings that you guys are tracking on when somebody is hired, what they actually get paid, like what they actually agree on. Because I think that's where it's been an interesting development in my life, because I am going to finish my doctorate in December of 2025 and working in the hospital setting right now. Even though I'm a healthcare provider, they're not going to necessarily honor the doctorate degree that I'm going to get in compensation, from what I've been in talks with HR and my managers. So I think the educational aspect and what people are actually agreeing on when they're in the hiring process is a very interesting aspect too, that we don't really get to see in the research most of the time.
Yeah. The one place it absolutely makes a difference is in the academic setting. We're also starting to see the DAT bump in college, university, and many secondary school settings that have that tiered educational base pay range. It's also factored in with experience. Not universal yet, but it's getting there. And I'm really pleased that I'm seeing more and more jobs that have DAT as at least a preferred qualification.
Yeah.
Your body is the most important instrument you have to perfect your craft, and it's important to keep it in top form. As To The Bone's official recovery partner, Rapid Reboot Recovery Products can help you do this. With their best-in-class pneumatic compression devices, you can customize your recovery settings to help your body perform its best. Get yours today with the To The Bone 15% discount code.
That's right. Visit rapidreboot.com, rapidreboot.com, and enter the code TOTHEBONE15 to get your 15% discount.
Have you guys seen anything from the bachelor's to the master's at all? Because I know the last NATA salary survey, bachelors were making like $69 more than a master's student in their averages and stuff. But have you guys noticed anything differentiating that at this point?
There is no significant difference between jobs posted with the minimum of a bachelor's degree versus those with a master's degree. Now, with time, we'll start to see a bit more separation there, but that's troubling. You really don't see the bump in salary until the doctorate is in hand.
Okay. Well, that's where I thought it was interesting. And I mean, that's where I kind of got some popularity on LinkedIn was with this master's requirement. I lost power in negotiation because master's became the requirement. But master's programs have been around for a while. You would think that they would have differentiated pretty quickly within the pay scales, but it's been so close to the bachelor's. Have you made any correlations between that at all?
The correlation between
how they haven't really separated in compensation amounts.
Yeah, we can't explain it other than the fact that historically athletic trainers tend to be the lowest paid member of the athletic department because there was a prevailing attitude that, okay, if you won't take this job for $45,000, somebody else will.
Okay.
And the people taking those jobs sort of reinforce that. Now that we're seeing so many vacancies at the college and university level, I would suspect that this time next year, when we compare the data, that there will be separation there.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear.
And not to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt.
No, you go.
There's no statistically significant difference between job postings that require 0 years of experience and 1 year of experience. It's not until you get to 2 years of experience that you would expect to see a statistically higher salary.
Well, and I was looking over your guys' website before the podcast, and have you guys noticed anything with the type of title that they call the athletic trainer, from associate, from assistant?
Absolutely. And I'm not blowing my own horn, but for years I've been preaching that the title means everything in the HR world. And it'd be interesting for you to have someone that works in HR on your podcast to get their perspective. But the term assistant means that you are subordinate to a full or a head. So the title of assistant athletic trainer carries a lower salary than just the title of just athletic trainer. Because in the HR world, those are two completely different things.
So would an assistant technically be like an entry level, just graduated, the 0 to 2 year markings, would you say? Or do you think we should just get rid of assistant altogether?
I think we should get rid of assistant altogether.
Okay.
You certainly need to have a director of sports medicine or a director of athletic training. Even head athletic trainer is acceptable there. But everybody else should be staff athletic trainer, get rid of the assistant designation.
Okay. What about these long-term athletic trainers and this associate head athletic trainer, associate athletic trainer? Does that provide any seniority or any pay bumps, or have you seen any correlation in that?
We there were 5 that reported salaries for assistant or associate director of sports medicine. That salary we can round up and call it 69,000. Head athletic trainer is 63,000.
That's interesting.
And the title of just and when I say just, I mean no modifiers on it, of athletic trainers 58,000, and assistant athletic trainer is 50,000.
Okay. And that was this recent year when you guys were gathering data?
Yeah, all these numbers are from 2024.
Okay. And are those the low range of what they're offering, or a set range?
That's the average.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's interesting. I would think it would have been maybe a little bit higher with the averages that the NATA salary was pulling out, which was around 65, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know how they did that. If we almost were too broad in our classifications by looking at it. We have assistant athletic director, director of sports medicine, head athletic trainer, associate athletic trainer, assistant associate athletic trainer, assistant athletic trainer, and short term. And the order that I gave those in goes from high salary to the lowest. Gotcha. And that's excluding the 1 year short term AT positions.
So if we get more granular, with the NATA salary survey, they go by districts, which I think is very interesting when they make these averages. Mm-hmm. I still haven't seen them necessarily pull it state by state. When I was in California, I felt like the NATA salary survey was obsolete for me because the FLSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act, is that what it's called? The minimum salaries for the state were mirroring what the averages were for the salary survey. So I couldn't really use it to negotiate higher pay. There's 6 states that don't abide by the federal minimum salary of $35,000 and some change. So I think it's a lot of work because there's 50 states, but I feel like we need to start kind of approaching it of either pulling data from all the states that go by the federal minimum salary, and then pulling data for those 6 states that are a little bit higher. Because with District 8, we got California, which is, I think, the second highest FLSA, and then they have Hawaii and not Arizona, Nevada. And it creates such a wide range of about $30,000 of what the minimums are supposed to be in those states. So I'm not sure how it obviously benefits Nevada and Hawaii, but California, it kind of pulls them down because there's 2 other states that are much lower than them.
Looking at these data by state, there were 104 jobs in California. Mm-hmm. The average salary, again, we can round that up to 70,000. Nevada was 62,000, and what was the other one you said?
Hawaii.
Hawaii, 62,000.
Okay.
And I know $62,000 in Hawaii is not the same as 62,000 in Nevada.
Yeah. Well, and like California's minimum FLSA is 68,000, so that's only about 2,000 under that 70. So I'm not sure how to fully utilize this NATA salary survey in some of these states where it it's actually lower than what I'm supposed to be paid minimally.
I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but MIT has the best cost of living calculator I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's very good.
You can even find Athens, Ohio on the thing.
Yeah.
And you single, married with 10 kids, and it'll tell you what you need to just get by.
Yeah. Well, and that's, the negotiation portion of it. And that's when I was in California really pushing, because I was on the lower end of everything. HR, they took into account the NATA salary survey, so that didn't really help. And then they were looking around, surrounding colleges at the D3 level, and they weren't really getting bumped up either. So I just felt like it caused a vicious cycle of not really providing good enough data points for me to actually negotiate for a higher range. The only thing that really increased my salary was because I was CSCS, and that we didn't have a strength and conditioning coach at that point, and that bumped me up like $5,000 for my salary. So I just
which again, that's not a huge chunk.
No, it's not.
Of money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for having my master's, it's I'm just not sure how to articulate the educational portion to HR or my athletic director most of the time.
Yeah. Well, when you get your DAT, you say that you have the terminal degree in the profession.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, yep. I'm going to utilize that as much as I can.
What you were talking about HR and athletic directors, Julie was, and I hope I'm not busting any confidentiality, but she's always mad at me. So between her and my wife, I'm never right. She discovered that one of the things that's hurting us is that the athletic director at College A would reach out to the athletic director at College B and say, well, yeah, that's within the same range that we're using. Mm-hmm. So College A said, okay, we're all right.
Yeah.
Rather than using data such as these. I know HR considers the NATA data to be quote unquote biased.
Yeah.
Because I could go in there and I make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pay that much on my taxes.
You don't want to be in that tax bracket at all? Well, that's where I'm also wondering with the NATA salary survey is how valid and reliable it actually is. If we're self-reporting, I feel like there's a bias of some people don't want to report because they're making such low money. And then I think it's more of the people that are making pretty good money that want to report, which obviously helps everybody, but is it an actual accurate number? And then, I mean, I've heard that HRs don't find it to be valid data because it is self-reporting ultimately. So I think I've heard that HR departments don't even use it as evidence when contemplating compensation. So that's where, why don't we all just go on and say we're all making 80K and then we can all inflate the number and get paid more.
We have had one or two people reach out or use these data to form the basis of their salary structure, which unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view it, was an improvement for those folks. And we know that these numbers are not where we want them to be.
Yeah.
But then again, you've seen on LinkedIn some of the discussions that PTs are having about their net reimbursement, not changing much over time either.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where it's very interesting that I would say physical therapists are our closest neighbor, and they're struggling with the same thing, and they can bill out to insurance. So I'm not sure what is going on in healthcare that people aren't wanting to pay for it, even with the insurance paying for that coverage.
Yeah,
So
and I'm not going to get political, but
dang it.
I am fearful for what's going to happen to healthcare coverage in this country, especially after today.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to be optimistic, but I just, with all the pauses that are going on, I'm not sure what's gonna come of it. What's actually gonna make it out alive?
Yeah, and some good things will come out of it. There's no doubt about that. But the old expression, "Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater."
Yeah.
It could apply here as well too.
Hey listeners, ever find yourself on the sidelines needing that one crucial item? Look no further than Nexus Sports Medicine. Nexus is your go-to partner for creating comprehensive medical kits and accessories tailored for athletic trainers in any setting. From high school fields to professional arenas, Nexus has you covered. These kits are designed by an athletic trainer with meticulous organization, ensuring that you're always prepared, no matter the situation. Stay ahead of the game with Nexus Sports Medicine and keep your athletes safe and thriving. Check out Nexus Sports Medicine at nexus-sportsmed.com. That's Nexus, Nexus-sports, SPORTSMED.com to find out more and get your perfect gear today.
So, with the MIT calculator that you had mentioned, could the NATA says that there's supposed to be a place of resource. I haven't really seen it linking to like this MIT cost of living calculator or like what the FLSA or minimum wage standards are in each state. Could these be some resources that you think would be helpful in one place at the NATA, or do you think it's not their responsibility for those type of resources?
If I were in a decision-making capacity with NATA, but I'm obviously not. I was disowned years ago. I would provide every resource possible and be more vocal in the support of higher salaries for athletic trainers.
Yeah. Well, that was when California was going through the AB 5, the contractor, what would that be called? Basically restricting who could be a contractor. I thought it was interesting that that wasn't highlighted more by the NATA, since that affects a high number of athletic trainers in that state. And then it went nationwide, and they still haven't really covered it of how do you be a contractor and protect yourself from being audited or breaking rules by the federal government. So that, I mean, these are some of the resources that I think would make it more robust, because we're too busy, taking care of patients and working the long hours, that how are we supposed to be up to date on some of this stuff? So I think these are some of the resources that the NATA should be a little bit more savvy to and providing to its constituents. But I could be crazy too.
I'm hopeful that with the net results of all the changes the NATA is making is that we were once a professional organization. We've basically drifted off to become more of a membership organization, back to being a professional organization. that
Yeah.
that will take stands and take a stand on positions and have worry a tad bit less about who they piss off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's with, the NATA salary survey. I guess I was under the impression that it went out to all athletic trainers because that's how you get the best data. But it is interesting looking at the summary and that all NATA members make more money than non-members. And I wasn't sure if that was biased because it was going out to the NATA members, or that the people that aren't members weren't participating in the survey because they didn't think it was useful to them because they weren't going to have access to the results afterwards.
Oh, they
But
don't?
you have to log on as a member to access the actual data from that survey.
You're correct about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm probably the worst member, but when people are asking on the Facebook pages, I usually send a copy of it, because it does help the profession if they're able to have something to negotiate with if they're in a position of being lower than the average that they're pulling out. So,
And said respectfully, there is a fundamental difference between the profession of athletic training and the NATA.
Yeah.
They are two separate entities, and the more their profession thrives, the more the NATA will thrive,
Exactly.
and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, and that's not to get political either, but it is interesting looking at the data points that they are pulling from the salary survey. And if we're trying to uplift the profession, I'm not sure why we're getting so granular into the ethnicity of what people are being paid, or, the gender one may be a good point, but I think it is interesting that we are over half female athletic trainers, and female athletic trainers are still getting paid less than men. So I think that is an aspect that we really need to take a look at. If we all are unhappy with our pay, why aren't women necessarily negotiating harder or more often if they are actually being paid less than men and make up most of the population of athletic trainers? So it's, some of the information is interesting, but some of it seems like we're just digging way too hard on the numbers and creating data points sometimes.
Going back to Julie in her research, she's probably somebody that would be good for you to talk to, because she does look at athletic trainers' willingness to negotiate and the reasons why they do or do not.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, she found that females were less likely to negotiate than males.
Yeah. Well, she did a study in 2022, and this is just a little summary, but over half of athletic trainers, 57.6%, didn't attempt to negotiate their salary, and nearly 3/4, 70.5%, didn't discuss employment terms during their hiring process. So that might be one of the reasons why we're dwindling in that $65,000 range, is we're either rolling over and not asking for annual reviews of our contracts, or, we're not pushing the boundaries when we're getting hired, when that is, I think, the most dynamic portion of your salary is when you first get hired, and pushing on what the organization can provide you and your benefits. So, and we've noticed that the collegiate setting, which from, I think, the salary survey I pulled away, 62% of the respondents from the survey were the NCAA schools, Division 1 through 3. Since we're having this compensation hang up at the collegiate setting, is it really a business structure that can actually withhold athletic trainers at this point if we've identified them not paying athletic trainers what they're worth.
Well, you're opening up a whole other can of worms right now, too. And that's the question: should athletic trainers be hired by the athletic department
Yeah.
because of the inherent conflict of interest
Yeah.
that presents?
Yeah. I think I asked on another podcast was, should we technically be hired by the health facility for the campus? So the campus health system that actually has doctors and nurses and other medical providers. I forgot who did the study, but it seemed that if an athletic trainer was reporting to an athletic director, the injury prevalence was much higher, I think. Or I won't go into that study, but
Your re-injury rate was higher and outcomes were lower.
yeah. And then I forgot who was the second option on reporting to, but they had much better outcomes for the overall health for the athletes. So it was very interesting
About
bringing
a
those
year
aspects
and a
in.
half ago, we, after years of trying, moved our clinical athletic trainers from athletics into our college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that they have a better quality of life now.
Yeah. It's interesting all the different dynamics that go into just treating an athlete. So I guess getting back to the data that you guys are collecting, what have been the big interpretations that you guys have gathered so far in 1 year completed of gathering data?
I think the main thing that we saw, and it wasn't unexpected, last January, and these numbers are for all positions, the average salary was just over 52,000.
Okay.
When September hit, that salary increased 15.3% to just over 60,000.
Okay.
And it stayed high through September. And then I guess once the fall season started, it nosedived a bit, but it's still $4,000 higher than we started in January.
Mm.
What's going to be really interesting is when we get January 2025 data entered, are we back to 52,000 or are we more along where we ended up in 2025?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see if seasonally it affects if it increases salary ranges because they're in a tizzy fit to try to get the position filled. But I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, looking over the data on your website, I'm surprised how many data points you've actually been able to come up with in over a year. Have any of them ultimately surprised you?
To me, the biggest surprise, and it wasn't a surprise to everyone, is that the colleges and universities pay the lowest.
Yeah.
And they also, in more times than not, have the greatest expectation in terms of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest variable that people have been wrestling with is the time commitment. I know that I posed the question, this was more for the high school settings, but is it worth going to 10-month positions? Or how did I pose that? I think for the high schools, it was the 10-month position and being able to comfortably live in those 2 months that you have off, where usually in the collegiate setting, you work 9 to 10 months really busy, and then the summers are usually pretty laid back. But right now, at least at Division I level for football, they're going almost all year round at this point. The NCAA is really kind of throwing a lot of the norms out the window, especially with this NIL stuff. And it's going to be interesting how much it trickles down to the athletic trainer and what all we're actually providing and what the time commitments are.
With it, assuming nothing changes with NIL.
Mm-hmm.
And full disclosure, I basically, my entire adult life, meaning from the time I hit 16, supported the concept of NIL.
Mm-hmm.
But I viewed it as if if Ohio University sells a jersey with the athlete's name and number on it,
Mm-hmm.
that person should be entitled to part of those sales.
Yeah.
And I think that name, image, and likeness, that falls in that. But this outright, okay, we'll pay you $1 million to come to the University of Alabama and be the quarterback. If that keeps up, there is going to be very little difference between being an athletic trainer in the Power Four conferences versus the NFL.
Yeah.
I assume many of these folks have agents, and in pros, agents are very involved in healthcare. How long is it going to be before that starts to trickle down?
Yeah. Well, and with the way that it's structured, would it be a conflict of interest if athletic trainers started pulling in their own sponsorship deals or other ways to make money for themselves?
Interesting question. If a school is sponsored by Adidas,
Mm-hmm.
but Reebok comes in and says, we'll give you $1 million to wear a Reebok shirt during televised games, I don't think the athletic department would allow it because of their base sponsorship contract.
If it's $1 million, couldn't Reebok just pay the fines? They've done that for other athletes. I mean, Michael Jordan's the biggest fee accumulator ever.
I think in the case of the athletic trainer, here's your pink slip.
But I feel like you would have a pretty good lawsuit on your hands.
Yeah. Well, it's probably going to take a lawsuit to get some of this stuff sorted out.
Yeah. True. I'm just not sure about going back to the athlete portion, our liability is going to skyrocket through the roof on these multi-million-dollar college athletes that we're working with now. And I don't think anybody's really taken into account the value of the athlete has changed. And I don't think that we've made accommodations to that necessarily. I know we're protected underneath the institution, but we still have a lot of athletic trainers that think, oh, the institution's liability insurance is going to cover me no matter what. And it's still very important that you get your own personal, professional liability insurance. And we're not really pushing out that word with all these changes that are going on.
Yeah. And that it's going to be really interesting to watch what happens the next few years.
Yeah. I think athletic trainers are somewhat a little slow on jumping on the gravy train. So that's where it's, asking the hard questions of, can we go out and get sponsorships technically? Or, I think the private sector of working with athletes one-on-one is going to be an aspect of it. If a multi-million-dollar athlete is coming into the athletic training room and they're having to abide by the schedule of appointments and stuff, what's going to, keep them in that atmosphere? They're going to go out and find their own care because they have to take care of their equipment, their body. to be able to perform that, since they have these sponsorships and deals that they have to upkeep.
Or what would happen if an athletic trainer said, "Hey, you're getting $1 million. I want you to pay me $200 per treatment."
I mean, are there any conflicts of interest at the collegiate level that an athlete can't pay you?
Yeah, probably, but I think that we've thrown a lot of that out the window here too.
Yeah. I think we're going to get into some sticky situations of preferential treatment. And I think some athletic trainers are going to get in trouble in the next few years because...
But I would argue we've always had a degree of preferential treatment.
Yeah.
If the first team quarterback gets hurt and the scout team quarterback gets hurt, where's most of that emphasis going to go?
True. With how litigious society has become, I'm surprised that hasn't really popped up yet either, but I wonder if it's going to become more apparent with
yet
these
is the
other
opposite
things.
word there.
True. I knew this was going to be a really interesting conversation with you.
From such a boring guy, you've done quite a job extracting me from my shell. Thank you.
I got to keep you young and with it.
What are you saying?
You've always been young and with it, you know?
I'm an old guy, but I don't consider myself to be a dinosaur.
You're still hip. Is that, I think, still a word that people use?
In my generation, yeah.
Raise the bar in 2025. Complete your BOC certification maintenance requirements early. Don't forget that 2025 is a reporting year for athletic trainers. Are you on track to complete your BOC certification maintenance requirements? Find out today by logging into your BOC profile at bocatc.org/BOC360. That's right, it's time, and this year is the year to renew your certification maintenance requirements. Check it out at bocatc.org/BOC360.
Introducing Q-Tape, the skin tone kinesiology tape designed to help you heal while blending seamlessly with your skin. Whether you're recovering from an injury or needing some extra reinforcement, Q-Tape offers support where you need it most without compromising your comfort or style. Our tape is available in 3 versatile skin tones, ensuring a seamless match for all skin types. No more awkward mismatched colors or feeling self-conscious during your recovery. Q-Tape isn't just about looks. It's designed for high performance. With its strong yet flexible adhesive, you get the support you need without sacrificing mobility. Whether you're dancing or working out, you'll enjoy full range of motion and all-day comfort. But that's not all. Q-Tape can be worn for up to 4 days. Going for a shower or swim, Q-Tape has got you covered. Find us at www.qtape.com and at @qtape_ on all social media platforms.
So when I went into my doctorate, I was looking at my capstone project. And initially what led me down this rabbit hole was, do you think we could ever create an equation, since the NATA cannot provide compensation recommendations or numbers due to antitrust laws. So since that's a perception that NATA should be setting salary standards, do you think we could ever come up with an equation that can articulate someone's education, experience, specialization to help them create a number for what their worth is when going into negotiations?
I think it could be done, but I think that equation would look like a Far Side cartoon where you've got 4 blackboards, and because you'd have to factor in cost of living in the area,
Yeah.
You know, net worth of the institution, and that automatically colleges would be higher than high school. I think that the best way to do it is we need to focus on our societal value.
Yeah.
And it's funny when it, there is not a more socialistic profession than athletic training in high schools and the historic college setting. We provide capitated healthcare services for a fixed cost.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't factor into that are other expenses that are saved.
Yeah.
If we can, if we use the Ottawa ankle rule, just about every ankle sprain we see would need a radiograph.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the athletic trainer's judgment that says, okay, even though you're a point tender here, here, and this, you can't walk 4 steps without pain. My palpation skills, my clinical examination skills rule out that you don't need radiographs. You don't need to go to the ER. You have this condition. We can transport you or set you up an appointment with a physician rather than call EMS.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is in your part of the country, but here when EMS arrives, that is automatically a $900 bill to that patient.
Yeah. Just for the response and coming on
Yeah.
site. I don't know what it is over here. I haven't had to call it exactly, or been waived off for not needing transport. But I know the mileage is very expensive for going 3 miles. Well, that's where I've wondered, do we need a tiered system of skills provided? If you're going to an event, are you there just for the emergency care? Is that a minimal cost? And then if you're starting to do game prep, taping, counseling athletes, is that another level up?
Rehabilitation would be another.
Yeah. So that's where I've been playing around in my head of, it's been interesting working with other athletic trainers on the sideline when I'm doing per diem, and some of them have set pretty hard boundaries on what they're going to do on the sideline and what they will provide to the event. Which, I mean, I don't think is a bad thing, but it just it very much makes me think, do we really need to start categorizing our skills to help determine value of what all we're going to do when we're being the athletic trainer?
And those skills have been identified in both the CATIE standards and the BOC's practice analysis. Some skills are certainly more valuable than others. Anybody can tape an ankle.
Yeah.
I've had friends that have taught their kids to tape an ankle just to show that is not a professional skill.
Mm-hmm.
Rehabbing an ACL takes knowledge, skill, and ability that is based on your education and your experience.
Mm-hmm.
So in practice coverage is, I equate it to being like a field goal kicker. It's 99% standing around doing nothing, and then 1% moment of sheer terror or urgency.
Yeah. The firefighter waiting around for the fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, some firefighters do start fires, so they're not bored. So, not sure if that's not all.
Well, I think that's where we've gotten in trouble a little bit, is we are the most versatile healthcare provider, I think. But I think we've kind of started some of these fires of all these other skills that we can provide. And then it kind of starts to stretch ourselves thin because we have promoted ourselves of the all-encompassing care, which isn't a bad thing, but it is interesting that we've kind of self-perpetuated some of these extra things that aren't really necessarily within what we should be providing. I guess it comes back to what is the one core thing that we are providing, which I would say is the emergent care most of the time, but that's up to debate
I
also.
think that core would vary based on where you are and what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly during games and practices, emergency care is the most important thing you do. But
Mm-hmm.
in the clinic, it's providing those capitated health rehab services that is the most important thing you do.
Yeah.
We're not charging the athlete a dime. We're not charging the family a dime. We're not charging the athletic department a dime. And most importantly, the insurance companies aren't getting billed for it
Yeah.
in most cases.
Yeah. Well, and that's, we go off the return on investment a lot when we're trying to do the negotiations. And at the collegiate level, I'm still having kind of a hard time of utilizing that as evidence. Because I think we have sufficient evidence on the return on investment for not sending out the athlete to physical therapy or having to go get a not necessary x-ray. But I don't think the return on investment is really to the school who is paying us. I think it's to the athlete because they're not missing more practices than they need to. They're getting the free rehabilitation and preparation for them to go out and be active and participate. So I think it's, I keep questioning that when I talk to people about this return on investment. The only return on investment that we're really providing the school is possibly decreasing the secondary insurance, but we're not even approaching that correctly because we're not doing enough in the functional movement screenings when we're doing the physicals at the beginning of the season. So the outcomes are kind of skewed on being able to actually provide information to the secondary insurance to decrease their premiums. So I don't think we're attacking the return on investment at the proper angles sometimes, but we're
Right,
very hung up on it.
but the one scenario you missed in that is that's Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, and then you have this little arc down here known as southeastern Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here.
Yeah.
It is one of the most medically underserved, medically uninsured areas of our country.
Mm.
There are high school athletes whose parents could not even afford the copay for a visit.
Mm.
So I think in those situations, having an athletic trainer at the high school, it doesn't save the high school any money, but boy, that family is really benefiting
Yeah.
from it.
Well, and I think that's confirming my point ultimately is that I don't think that the ROI, especially in the high school setting, I'm not sure about college, obviously, because they're 18 and adults technically. But, approaching the parent associations, the PTAs, about these ROIs that we are creating, I don't think going to the school district, they really care because it's not really their kid. But when you're going to the parents with what we are saving them ultimately, for instance, that's that area that you're talking about. I don't think we're presenting the data to the correct stakeholders sometimes, and then I don't think we are properly that ROI, I don't know if it's really affecting the bottom line at Division 2 or Division 3, because they're not really making money off of that athlete playing. NIL obviously changes it a little bit now, but the Division 1 is really where that ROI is very applicable, because you need that starting quarterback in the game to make the win, to go to the championships,
I guess I keep adding more variables to this. Like I said, this equation, what's not being factored in here is if there is insufficient athletic training healthcare services
Mm-hmm.
and someone dies or is permanently disabled, how much is that school going to pay out in a lawsuit?
Yeah.
I promise you it's going to be a whole lot more than what they would pay athletic trainers at a reasonable rate.
Yeah. But is the scare tactic really working in athletic training? Of deaths or these...
Is that a scare tactic or is it reality?
Well, I mean, I think it's reality, but I guess it's how you present that information to the stakeholder.
Yeah. Well, I always like to ask the question, is there a community in the U.S. that would open a public swimming pool without hiring lifeguards?
Yeah.
Why do they hire those lifeguards? To reduce their liability.
Yeah. But lifeguards are getting paid, what, $10, $15 an hour?
But they get nice suntans and you get a swing with their whistle.
I mean, I would prefer to sit out in the sun and watch people splash around than, people running sprints and
complaining. And this is where you use epidemiology
mm-hmm.
to say, well, the chance of someone dislocating a hip in collegiate football is X number of times greater than someone drowning or near drowning in a public pool.
Yeah. But aren't we supposed to be preventing that sort of injury also?
How can you prove that anyone prevented an injury?
I don't know.
And there are ways, using a large scale techniques, you can do it, but you could not go, I prevented Billy from dislocating his hip because I did this.
Yeah. I just, that's one of our selling points, though, too, is that we're going to prevent that stuff. So are we really doing a good enough job if those injuries are still coming out?
Yeah, I've always framed it more that we play a much bigger role in preventing re-injury than new injuries. And let's face it, if a 300-pound lineman fell on my leg,
yes, true,
that's gonna break.
Yes. I thought you were Superman. Kryptonite was your only thing.
No, I'm more like resident alien would be about the closest I'll come on something that'll be widely distributed.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I understand the trauma, contact injuries, the AED situations where somebody's in cardiac arrest or whatever. That's where aren't we supposed to be trying to screen for that stuff and make sure that we decrease that risk of a cardiac incident, because not everybody's able to do EKGs and all that stuff, but in some instances, some places do have the money to do that. So aren't we decreasing that risk for response from the athletic trainer?
Tragic as the outcome could have been,
mm-hmm.
Damar Hamlin was one of the best things to happen to our profession.
Yeah.
Because it just so happened that he was a professional football player playing live on TV
Mhm.
against Athens, Ohio's own Joe Burrow, and millions of people saw this, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen at Athens High School.
True. I mean, it does happen at the high school all the time.
Yeah, and Komodo Cordis, the younger you are, the more likely you are to sustain it.
True. True. So, I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and I think it's something to still talk about. And I don't know if tiering the athletic training service is really a thing. You know, manual therapy. I mean, that's more in that rehabilitation in the athletic training room, like we had talked about. But does everybody need a dry needle kind of thing? We've been getting by for the last couple 50 or so years without necessarily dry needling.
Have you noticed how our interventions come and go in cycles?
Yeah.
You know, right now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Right now, it's really rare to see therapeutic ultrasound used clinically.
Yeah.
10 years ago, that was an ingrained part of the process, no matter what you were treating.
Yeah.
You know, we do, and we're not the only ones. Healthcare tends to go through these ebbs and tides, and have this grand debate about illusions versus reality and what some of these things do.
The placebo effect.
Placebo, yep.
Well, that's where the fads that come and go. Obviously, KT tape was one of them. It's still sticking around ultimately. But but the dry needling, like, it's very much at the forefront of everybody's practice at this point. And I like using it, but I think it's interesting that we have focused so heartily on making sure that that's in our practice acts when we have such a variety of skills. That do we really need that in everyday practice? Cupping was another one that was really hot a few years ago. I mean, people are still using it, but I don't know if it's just that we are pushing boundaries and finding new things to incorporate, or if it's just a fad in and out.
Think about the poor students of mine that have to deal with me every day. And when I teach them therapeutic interventions, what I will do is get a toolbox,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll put it out, open it up. This is a hammer. A hammer is great for hammering in nails. If you try to hammer in a screw, you're not going to get good results. And everything has the possibility of being the therapeutic part of therapeutic interventions.
Mm-hmm.
But something at point A may be therapeutic, but when you get to point C, it's no longer therapeutic. So
Yeah.
it's that clinical discrimination of what to use when that tends to be a problem
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. Yes. I'm not sure what the next fad will be, but I think it's lasers. I think that's what's coming next.
Laser.
Or the diagnostic ultrasound.
Well, diagnostic ultrasound has some clinical utility. You can see, visualize the tissue and see what's there.
Yeah.
Now, interpreting diagnostic ultrasound is like every sonar operator you've ever seen in any submarine movie. You've got to be able to interpret what all that noise is,
Yeah.
and indeed filter out the noise from reality.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we've gotten so off track. We'll come back to the data. So how can people get involved with this data collection if they were interested in working alongside the famous Chad Starkey?
Believe me, of the three of us, I am by far the dumbest one. Dr. Bacon and Dr. Cavallario are the true brains of this.
Yeah.
I do think that we are at a crossroads in that, do we continue to do this? And I guess we should have pointed this way out at the beginning. None of us make a dime for any of this that we're doing. We don't have, my dean doesn't say, "Oh, how great. Take 5 hours a week to." So we've got to squeeze it into our own time. I do think that there are many other topics that we could delve into.
Mm-hmm.
So I would look for a post on LinkedIn. I no longer use the platform formerly known as Twitter. For maybe calls for volunteerism and ideas of future study.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because how much longer do you guys think you'll carry out this data collection?
Well, we in the fall we did another enrollment survey, and totally my fault. Those results are delayed getting out. We're already collecting 2025 salary data. I do think that, especially on the chart of salary increases, decreases, have that comparison today, this time last year.
Okay.
That hopefully shows that these salaries are going in the right direction.
Okay. Well, we'll all keep an eye out for that when it finally gets released. So you guys do have openings if people want to get involved in this data collection. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm just not sure what the roles would be right
Okay.
now.
Okay. Well, is there an email on the website, or how can people get in contact?
There is essentially an RFI form where you sign up.
Okay.
On that.
Perfect. And that was athletictrainingdata.com if anybody's interested.
Wait, no, ATdata.
Oh, ATdata. Okay. So I'll post the link in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get involved and look over the data, because the data is very interesting if you have time to do that. And then what else do you have coming up, Chad?
That we were supposed to meet last week to discuss our plans, but Julie and Cailee got ill, so we canceled that meeting. So ask me in a week or so.
And you do update on LinkedIn when that stuff gets posted.
Absolutely, yes.
Make sure you're following Chad on LinkedIn so you can get updates on the data. And then anything else you want to throw in before
if you want to follow me on social media, mychart.com is where I'm most active.
Okay, perfect. That's good.
You don't get that joke, do you?
My chart?
Yeah.
Like at the hospital? No,
Yeah.
That went fully over my head. I just got it now. Well, obviously. You're just too much for me. Okay. Well, I am hoping to have you on in the future. We have to brainstorm on what the next topic is, but I definitely love the back and forth. And, you challenging me, and hopefully I'm a little challenging to you.
I had hair once. And anybody that knows me knows that Elvis Costello is my absolute hero in life. And one of my favorite lines from his song is, "You can't show me any kind of hell that I don't know already." So I welcome the challenge of people giving me grief.
Okay, good. Because if my dad was on the show with me, he would, let you know how hard I am to live with. So, well, thank you so much, Chad, for being on the show.
It's been absolutely my pleasure. I appreciate your post on LinkedIn. We need futuristic, I hate the term out of the box, people that are willing to view and solve problems from the non-traditional angle.
Yeah. And, I'm always open for conversation. I mean, I think when I started this venture, I called you and started poking around of, well, what are your interpretations on all this? And you were able to give it to me straight, and we were able to have a full conversation and go back and forth. So, I don't think we should be speaking in the shadows. And these are important topics that people are actually talking about a lot. It's just that, I think people are too scared to pose questions on the internet because it lives there forever. It's just that you have to be professional about it and not bitching all the time.
Which we're also very good at.
Well, yes, we are very good at that for athletic trainers. So, okay, well, I'll let you get back to work. We need some more data points. Come on.
All righty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It is hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.